anyway, we get out and take at least one walk per day when we have enough caregivers and things are able to move along more swiftly and Betty is able to get up earlier. Then we get in 2 walks. When the weather is perfect in the neighborhood, it allows for us to get in 2 walks. But if we don't have the right amount of support, we at least get in 1 walk every day. Because walking is very important. Exercise is de-stressing. We walk, we talk, we say hello to the neighbors, and that is de-stressing. And I think it helps us to sleep better at night too, because when we get exercise and we burn off some of our frustrations and some of our energy, then we're able to sleep better also. Betty? Yep, saying hi to everybody, aren't you? Saying hello to everybody. So, and walking causes us to use our brain to problem solve, especially on the sidewalks, because the sidewalks are uneven. And so when we come to those uneven raised areas, then you'll notice Betty trying to figure out how to navigate the stroller over those uneven areas, which is good brain exercise for her as well. Walking and talking, eating, problem solving, all of that is good brain exercise. We take it for granted, but the brain has to be engaged in order to move. And so it's good for Betty in every way. Come on, Betty.
Open it.
Come on. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Good job. Come on. Oh, Lord, I want to be. And she picked up her feet. She pushed down to get the nose of the stroller elevated. And then when her feet came to the rise, she lifted her foot. So she was very intentional about doing that carefully. And that is brain exercise and evidence that the brain is still functioning. It's still problem solving. She's still figuring things out. Absolutely. So anyway, my first memory of Betty saying anything about her dementia.
A ninja.
Her dementia. Yep.
Oh.
The first time I remember, the first statement that I remember her making about dementia, she said something like, something's not right with my mind. Something's not right with my mind. I'm getting confused. And then the next statement I remember her making, she said, come on, baby. When my car lease is up, I'm not going to get another car. She said, because I'm getting confused and I don't want to hurt anybody. And she actually followed through on that. Once her car lease was up, she did not lease another car. And those are 2 important demarcations in terms of my memory of my mother's acknowledgement that something was going awry with her brain. Yes, ma'am. It moves along nicely, doesn't it?
I hope it is.
Yep. We're moving along nicely. We're rolling really nice and smoothly. And we always go left down this driveway. We make a diagonal because we use this hill to work our muscles, a different group of muscles, going down the hill, and then yet another group of muscles coming up the hill. It's the steepest hill that we have in the neighborhood. So we use it to increase our workout. So anyway, thinking back, we first did what everybody does, and that is we started making doctor's appointments and going to doctor's office visits, and their investigation into the dementia was classic. It included blood draws and imaging tests and prescriptions. And the first prescription that my mom was prescribed was Aricept. And Aricept did not go over well with her body, and it made her super tired, super sleepy. And so she was always craving the bed and really lackluster staying in the bed. And so then the next drug that I recall being prescribed was called Razidine. And Razidine would make her feel really bad at first, and then over time, maybe within a couple of hours or so, then it would resolve and she would start to feel better. But still, just the fact that she would become so sick for the first hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I don't recall how many, but the fact that she would become so sickly feeling still, you know, undermined her quality of life and still wasn't appealing. And so anyway, the next thing that I remember is my neighbor, because of course you're talking to your friends and, you know, sharing with them that this is happening, and so then people try to help, you know, wherever they can. And so my neighbor brought to me a periodical, a write-up, like some type of write-up. I just remember it was a handheld write-up, and it was titled The 30-Day Dementia Cure. And in that write-up, it gave a listing.
They haven't had them there for the day and put it up and
over-the-counter holistic products that could be tried to help with the brain. And so that gave me like a map to follow. That was the first map that I started following to see if we could find over-the-counter products that might help Mom. So we always cross over here. We don't go all the way to the corner because that's a point of entry for cars moving fast. And then oftentimes Betty is challenging to make those turns. She doesn't make transitions very well, and we don't want to be near the points of entry when we are when we're making that turn, because we don't want to be struggling with Betty and a car comes around the corner whipping and doesn't see us. So anyway, that's why we make a U-turn before we get to the end of the corner. So anyway, that was my first venture into holistic care. And I'll say this too, that my mother had a really horrible menopausal season. She was in she was burning up with heat, and she treated herself holistically with vitamin E and cod liver oil. So she too was a person who was interested in holistic methods prior to the onset of the dementia. So anyway, what got us onto holistic care really was the fact that going the traditional route wasn't getting us feeling any better, and in fact you had the misery of the dementia, and then you had the misery of the side effects of the medications. And so it was just double indemnity, and it was really you know, it was just undermining quality of life. So anyway, we got onto the holistic care route, and here we are 20 years later with many other people having been diagnosed with dementia after Betty, and all of those people have passed away. And so it has really supported the belief that if you can support yourself holistically, then you might have better strength, better perseverance, better endurance for a journey like this. And if you can live long enough, then you may be one of the people living when a true cure comes about. And so that is the hope. The ultimate hope and prayer is that there will truly be a breakthrough, and that Betty will be one of those persons living to take advantage of that true breakthrough. Her digestive system is not well. It's not performing well. And so when she eats food, she either has some negative experience with the food, such as becoming combative. So for example, here you go, Betty. I've got some ice for you.
You need them for yourself.
Okay.
So that I can come and go and get.
Well, I figured if I shared with you that would be a nice thing to do. So I always want to share with you, Betty. So
one apology.
Yes, indeedy. So one of the things that I have, in terms of modifying her diet, she receives nothing, no food that has flour in it, because over time it became clear that foods that included flour, they were going to do the same thing that the pharmaceutical drugs did, which is they were going to make her extremely tired. So noodles, bread, gravies, creamy soups that are normally thickened with flour, Betty receives none of that in her diet. Now when I figured that part out, that was a big improvement to her well-being. So she eats plenty of food, nutritious food, and everything that she eats is delicious, but none of it includes flour. And so I was watching Dr. Oz one day, and he actually stated, and this was in recent times, I would say within the last year, he was doing a show that included talking about Alzheimer's and dementia, and he said that dementia is now being referred to as diabetes type 3. And when he said that, I just about fell on the floor, because I had said so many times that it's like mom's body is diabetic. It's like the food is not metabolizing properly. And the response to it in terms of, you know how diabetes basically affects every part of your body. It can affect your eyes, it can affect your blood circulation and your limbs and your heart, because it's an autoimmune condition. And autoimmune conditions cause the body to attack itself. And so when she would eat, it was very clear that there would become like an internal civil war going on inside of her. she'd become so combative and so miserable and so tired, and you know, it would make her feel sad, of course. It would affect her emotions. And so anyway, when he made that statement, it was a glorious, confirming statement. So I don't know if the parameters for diagnosing diabetes are not correct, and if you fall outside of the spectrum of diagnoses, then you're left believing that you don't have diabetes. I don't know what's going on in terms of the process, the diagnostic process that is currently being implemented in doctors' offices. But anyway, Betty feels much better. Yes?
These are all hairs, yours?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, then I need to be worried.
But you know what, Betty? I always share with you, so I'm okay with it. I have more ice for you, in fact. Yes, we do. So anyway, she is fed a diet that is free of flour, and that has been a big step in the right direction. Is to really pay attention to what happens to your loved one after eating. Because if you can zero in on food sensitivities and then eliminate the things that undermine your loved one's sense of well-being, that is going to help a whole lot in terms of your loved one's body performance and you being able to manage that person. For example, if mom was under the influence of flour right now, there's no way that we would be able to take this walk. Just with dementia on board, it's a challenge.
Okay.
You never know what's going to enter her mind, and you know, her energy level, you don't know how far she's going to be able to go. So it's a guessing game in terms of what her tolerance is. But if she was under the influence of having had a sandwich or any noodle dish or anything like that, she would not be able to be manageable on this walk. And so of course that would undermine her longevity, because if you're continuously fed food that your body recognizes as the enemy, if it causes a civil war to start going on in your body, it's tearing you up inside. And so that food is poisonous to you. And so it's very important for everyone to pay attention to themselves and to pay attention to the person that they're caring for and make modifications. Gluten and modified food starch and flour can be in hidden places too. So for example, if you purchase a rotisserie chicken or grilled chicken at a fast food restaurant or at a grocery store or something, in the seasoning that is on the chicken, even though the chicken is baked, it might still have a seasoning blend on it that includes modified food starches or flours that would still offend the digestive system of your loved one. And again, when they're not feeling well and they're uncooperative, that's going to make your job that much harder. So it's very important to become knowledgeable and to have discipline with respect to modifying the diet and maintaining a diet that is gluten-free. It's going to be better for you and it's going to be better for them. It's big. So that's a big piece of advice that I'm sharing, that I have learned on this journey with Betty. You leave the person in the care of other people, like family members or what have you, who don't believe that the person can no longer eat that way. That can also be a battle. Because people think, oh, you've always eaten this, she's always eaten that. And it can be hard if they don't have the experience themselves with the food allergy. It can be hard for people to understand that this is real and that these foods are poisonous and that they're actually harming and even slowly killing, just like cigarettes kill slowly. The consumption of foods can be a slow killing experience as well. And in the short term, it certainly kills the quality of your day. And that's very important. In a situation where someone is dealing with dementia, their life is already compromised in terms of how much they can do and enjoy. And so we certainly don't want to do things that make their days any more miserable. So, again, very important. Hi, Betty?
Yes, sir.
I got some ice for you.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we always bring some ice, and we have some tart cherry juice on the ice because tart cherry juice tastes very good, and it's an anti-inflammatory. It's very soothing to Betty's gut, and it helps us to be continuous on our walks. It helps us a whole heck of a lot. So, Montmorency tart cherry juice. I highly recommend it. Don't leave home without it.
It's really
awesome.
present.
Or at least I'll say give it a try. It works beautifully for Betty. So, I have many hopes and dreams for Betty. And one of my hopes and dreams, I have hopes and dreams for you, Betty. I have hopes and dreams. And one of my hopes and dreams is that we would somehow be so fortunate as to have a partnership with someone who knows more than I do. With someone who understands the gut-brain connection, because Betty's dementia has got something to do with her gut-brain connection, her allergies, the way that her food responds, the way that her digestive system responds to food. Something is awry there. And that is playing a major role in her confusion and in her dementia. Because Betty's dementia has a major component of confusion in it. So a lot of times she doesn't understand what you're saying to her. She understands a lot, but then sometimes she doesn't understand. You might say, "Stand up, Betty," and she goes to sit down. Or you may say, "Sit down, Betty," and she goes to stand up. Or she may put her hand in some water and the water is hot, but she references it as being cold. So there's an element of confusion in there. And in traditional doctor's office visits and imaging and whatnot, they always want to look at the brain. And I don't believe that her brain is the issue. I think her digestive system is the issue. I also believe that Betty is an autoimmune sufferer, and diabetes is an autoimmune condition, and I believe that Betty is diabetic. I know that she has often been thought to have lupus, but she's never tested out for lupus. she also has kind of a syndrome of things going on, in that she has eye issues, macular degeneration, glaucoma, and I keep forgetting that other one. It'll come to me. And she's got irritable bowel syndrome. And her irritable bowel syndrome, it swings between the diarrhea and the constipation, but one is more dominant than the other. So there have been times in her illness process where she was more prone to diarrhea. But within the last year, I would say, she's been more prone to constipation. So she has irritable bowel syndrome, and she has allergies in general, like she's sensitive to the sun. I remember when I was a kid and we would go down south to Mississippi, and she would oftentimes have these swelling episodes where her face would swell, her lips would swell, and then her skin would actually open, and there would be some oozing of fluid, like a pussy matter, coming from these cracks in her skin. And she'd come back home. She would, of course, go to the doctor. The doctor sent her to this rheumatologist, that rheumatologist, and they would run lupus tests on her. And but it would never come back positive. And so, and that's another autoimmune condition. So I do believe that she has some type of autoimmunity, and I know that immunity tends to run, if you have one, you tend to have another. But we just never have had the good fortune to be to find ourselves with a practitioner who has successfully gotten to the bottom of Betty's medical mystery. What'd you say, Betty?
4?
Yes.
Day 4?
Yes. Absolutely. And so, so like I say, she's got the issues with the eyes. She's got the issues with the digestive system and sun exposure. She tends to have a problem with sunlight exposure. There's something called pellagra, and pellagra is an illness that is characterized by dermatitis, dementia, and niacin deficiency. And very few people in the United States have niacin deficiency, but corn is high in niacin, and Betty responds favorably to corn. And so I question whether or not this illness called pellagra is a part of her equation as well. And niacin is a B vitamin that is very beneficial to the brain. And popcorn is a part of Betty's bedtime routine for the sedation of popcorn. And corn is a part of her dinner soup because she responds so favorably to corn. So anyway, when the doctors are not able to figure you out, and you thereby have to become your own detective, you learn a lot along the way. But boy, oh boy, would I love to be in the hands of Dr. Oz, his wife Lisa. You know, Dr. Oz credits his wife Lisa and her family for exposing him to holistic medicine and care, because her family was very knowledgeable and very well practiced in holistic care. Hold on, Betty. Wait, hold on, Betty. I got some ice for you. Good job, nice and strong. So I would love for Betty and I to be so fortunate as to be looked over by Dr. Oz and his wife, and to be helped and to further our education and to further the body investigation of Betty, to try to get to the bottom of what's going on. Because if you get the proper diagnosis, then hopefully you can really nail the treatment. So Dr. Oz, his partner, Mike Roizen, I know, is at the Cleveland Clinic, and we've never been there, so they might be able to get us in there and really take us through the proper testing. Because I said before that Betty's brain is always looked at, but I think her brain is just the symptom of the problem going on. No, this way, Betty. The problem going on with her gut and her stomach. And I just would love to be under the guidance and under the care of a practitioner or a group of practitioners that have a lot of knowledge with respect to that connection. And maybe we could even get further, because we've gotten a long ways, haven't we, Betty? We've gotten a long ways, but I just feel like we could get further. I feel like we could get further, and I feel like Betty is just hanging on, waiting for us to get it right. And I feel like she, in her older years, is now experiencing too age discrimination. Because whenever we go for physicals or whatever, and we're talking her case over, her history, I mean, I've taken a lot of painstaking effort to pull together her history. And whenever you're in these doctor's appointments, you know, they basically wind up saying that, well, she's lived a long life. And I mean, it's very clear that they're practicing age discrimination. And this lady has been dealing with this a long time, and she deserves to have answers. And in this era that we're living in, we have more and more centenarians. And Betty has the strength. She's so strong. And she could be one of those centenarians. And how dare they take that away from her by not giving her their very best effort and attention. And how dare they take that away from me as her daughter, who has been fighting this fight with her all this time, 20 years, and we want to be victorious in this. We want to know definitively what she's dealing with, and we want her to get the very best intervention and the correct intervention that is available, and she deserves it. And medicine should be ethical, and they are charged with not discriminating on the basis of age, and they're doing it every single day. I've witnessed it, I've experienced it, and it's wrong. And so anyway, I would love for Betty to be connected with the right group of doctors who will take her story, her life, her situation seriously. And I would like for our end result to be a victorious, definitive answer that can be shared with others who are wondering, what's wrong with me? What's going on with me? And I'd like to deliver that answer to a lot of people, because it's just not fair to live feeling so poorly and not understand why, and not feel that people care enough to really get to the bottom of it. I mean, how dare we as human beings make someone feel that they're not worth it, that we don't care, and that you know, that person is disposable because of their age or any other reason. It's ridiculous. And we've got to fight against that, lest we become 84 and then we're in the same situation and the system still is practicing age discrimination when we become elderly. So we have to fight these battles, and so that's what we're here for. You're chewing your coconut there. So fresh coconut in general is very beneficial. It's a fibrous food, and it's a high fat food, and it's a B vitamin food. And so we sprinkle coconut on her various fruits, and even in her evening soup. It gets a little bit of fine shred coconut in the evening soup, and it helps her to continue to move along, and it helps her to use the bathroom, and it helps her just in general. It's a good choice. Coconut. When you're purchasing coconut, look at your ingredient label. In fact, don't buy anything without reading the ingredient label so that you're making a good choice with respect to what to buy, because you might look at, let's say, one mustard and it might have dyes in it, and you look at another mustard and it just has mustard and vinegar and salt in it. Maybe 3-4 ingredients, very simply made, no chemical names, no names of anything that you can't pronounce, no dyes. So of course, if you're comparing the two, you're going to make the cleaner choice, the choice that has the least number of ingredients, and all of the ingredients are things that you recognize as being food. Real
Let
food.
me come down here one day for him to come.
Don't get tricked. Make smart choices. What'd you say, Betty? Hi, come on. You're welcome. Betty, you're itchy, aren't you? Itchy, itchy, itchy because of the sun and the humidity. It's aggravating her skin, and this is another part of the syndrome of Betty, is that her skin tends to be very dry. So we put a lot of effort into making certain that her skin is well moisturized. So her skin is well moisturized right now, but because we're out in the sun and it's summer weather, she is perspiring, feeling warm, and her skin is becoming irritated because of that. And that's a part of her constellation of body issues. All right, Betty, come on. But you're a survivor, no matter what.
We're gonna come back here?
We're gonna go straight. We're going home.
Okay.
All right, come on. And 20 years ago, when this got underway, my role was scheduling doctor's appointments, and then I remember being on the computer and making a daily checklist so that she and my sister would have a checkoff list to make certain that everything that she was supposed to do got done, and they would both be reminded of what needed to get done, and it would help them to make sure that everything got done. And 8 years ago, Betty moved into the home with us, and so we've been fighting this fight. I've been in the dementia boat with Betty for a long time, and over the course of all those years, the demands and the responsibilities of it have just grown and grown and grown and grown. And here goes the eyes are starting to weep, and this is an allergic response. This happens sometimes when we're out in the environment. I think there are triggers. Sometimes they're environmental in terms of being out here in the air, maybe with the sun exposure. The same things that are aggravating her skin may also be aggravating her eyes, but sometimes these eyes start watering when we're in the house also. And so you just don't know, because this doesn't happen with just one environment or one thing. So I can't say that. I just know that she's
Come on.
she's allergic.
Oh,
That
she
she's
got it
very
over here.
sensitive.